editors for this music, let's use the OG space track, right? Spacewalk. Anyways, welcome back to yet a second part of the tier list video, which is which light cone should you be putting for as of the second anniversary in HSR, right? So the very first tier list, I think I yapped on for like almost 1 hour going through every single limited 5-star in HSR, and like I mentioned, for that tier list took a little bit of inspiration from one of my favorite gacha games all time right now, Epic 7, right? They have a lot of tier lists because still the meta keeps changing, you got a lot of selectors kind of stuff. So I figured, why not do something similar for my, second favorite game? Yeah, my favorite game, Honkai Starbucks, right? So this time we are going to be talking about the second portion because we already went through the units. And today is going to be talking about the light cones of this game, right? Just like my previous video, I'm not going to look at chat. I'm not going to be looking for feedbacks. These are just going to be my personal opinions and my personal opinions alone. Because if I were to get sidetracked by chat, it's never going to end. I know there are some moments you're going to war. Oh my god, this is so L, whatever. Make your own damn tier list, right? So without further ado, first light cone, Sele's bada boom. Okay, wait, let me zoom this out a little bit. Oh, I just realized one thing, guys. They have a buff units, right? They have a buff units. Are we getting buff for the light cones? Because I think that would be pretty diabolical, no? Like Blaze, Seal, Wolf, Kafka, Jingliu. Do you think their light cones will get buffed? We don't know. I think that would be pretty interesting to buff their signature. Like, okay, I'm gonna keep it about this light cone. Holy incessant rain. Hit rate by 24%, 12% crit rate on a debuffer, and the Aether code, right? Increase the damage for 12% for 1 turn. 1 turn, by the way. And this is after using your basic attack skill ultimate. So that literal hit itself, it doesn't even have the debuff, right? 1 turn. I don't know what the they're cooking. This like was absolute hot garbage. Definitely needs a buff. And honestly, frankly speaking, I wouldn't be too opposed to the idea of like buffing signature Lycons in Honkai Starbucks. Because if the units are gonna be getting buffed, I don't see why shouldn't signature Lycon be getting buffed. Right? So that aside, I'm not gonna talk about these 4 Lycons. I'm just gonna be okay, maybe a little bit, but let's just start off with Seele first. As of this moment, it's a little bit hard to decide if you pull a light cone for a unit or if you decide to pull the unit because you want to pair them up with a light cone, because it really depends on your account. I would say generally speaking, a lot of the players in HSR, they don't tend to pull a light cone before actually owning that set unit, right? Especially, for example, right now we have the Anaxa unit himself as well as the Anaxa light cone. Most people probably wouldn't think about putting his light cone first before him and then slapping on that light cone to, like, for example, Herta or something, because there are scenarios where you could see some specific light cones having a lot of value. I'm talking about like Herta's light cone is technically pretty decent for the hyper carrier Anaxa, right? Topaz signature light cone, you can literally stack the effect on consecutively, which is very nice. So as outside of these kind of extreme examples, I'll try to take it a little bit more tied towards the unit themselves. So for example, Sele's light cone tied with Seele herself and see what other units outside of Seele can make use of this light cone. So with that being said, now you don't need this. Alright, because we have this beautiful thing in this Herta shop called the Cruising in the Stellar Seed, right? Very good Lycon. In fact, that Lycon is so damn good. It's one of the reasons why Seele has been one of, if not the best E0 Agile DPS back when version 1 launched, right? Because a lot of these other version 1 DPS, Jing Yuan, Jingliu, all that kind of stuff, they are very tight to the signature Lycon. Seele was one of the few exceptions because Cruising in the Stellar Seed was a very good alternative. So I don't see any reason why you should be putting for this signature Lycon specifically. You can take a look at the effects. You gain additional damage, right? This is damage, not damage receive damage. It's just damage based on the stacks up to 6 times. So at 160 speed, you gain the maximum effect. But the thing is, almost no other hunt units in the game can reach this efficiently. And if you want to reach this efficiently, every single subset you're giving into speed, you are sacrificing crit rate, crit damage, or attack percentage, which in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't change too much. So generally speaking, I would say that in the night, it's not going to be worth it for most players. So very Jing Yuan. I would say Jing Yuan's light cone, it used to be very good. This used to be a super good light cone back when it first launched for average units. You can basically slap this on the Herta, okay, not Herta, sorry, baby Herta, Saval, Himeko first launch. But ever since the release of Herta herself, as well as a lot of other average edition light cones, for example, Jade's signature light cone, right? Jade's signature light cone is really good. I also wouldn't say anyone needs to use this anymore, right? There's almost no reason why you should be thinking about putting this guy, because we have a lot of better alternatives, which at the end of the day, you're spending the same number of Seele Jades for what could have been an even better upgrade, right? So if you take a look at the Lycon option comparison over here, this is going to be on the evolution path before dawn, crit damage, ultimate and skill damage, and after this you have a follow-up damage increase by 48%. And judging from this follow-up attack damage increase, is a little bit unfortunate that the strongest evolution unit right now, which is the Herta, doesn't really make use of follow-up attack at all. To a certain extent, Jade could use this, but then Jade has her own signature, which is like way better than the defects. So I guess if you really wanted to run this as like a sub DPS kind of thing, you could. But then we also have other signature like codes. For example, even a 3-star signature like erudition pass key, it gives you energy per hit. So you can see even 4-star units like Serval and Baby Herta, they don't even care about damage anymore. You just build them all in for Ego 4 piece, and because there's the shape of the meta right now, right? The Herta quite literally solidifies the entire landscape for erudition units. So even if you wanted to run a sub DPS, you just wouldn't run them on a Jing Lycon, just run them on pass key, give them as much energy as possible, and funnel in all of your DPS in the Herta itself. So with that, I personally don't think that this Lycon is gonna be that worth it, right? Okay, Luocha Lycon. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't even remember what the fuck this thing does. Increase attack by 24%. Regenerates 3 energy for each target hit. Can generate up to 3 times this way. After you use ultimate, gain speed for 1 turn. Okay, this looks pretty interesting. Oh, it gives you a 2-turn Lingsha out. Oh, this is a Lingsha. Yeah, because this attack, right? All of her attacks land on every single enemy target, namely her skill, ultimate, as well as the follow-up from the body. So you actually generate quite a substantial amount of energy from this if you were to give the Lingsha. And she scales with attack as well. They might as well just change Luocha's face to Lingsha over here. It can be quite synergistic, right? And you also have the additional 12 speed. Not 12, just flat out 12 speed for 1 turn. Okay, this might mess with your speed tuning a little bit. Okay, I think this looks pretty interesting. Okay, me personally, I actually don't have this, and I actually have not heard of anyone that has been using this. I guess it can be classified as a niche Lycon, because at the end of the day, Lingsha herself, she does see quite a lot of use in the Braid teams. And if you can guarantee a 2-turn ultimate on Lingsha, I think that should hold pretty substantial value, especially if you somehow were somebody that, you know, you pull for Luocha's Lycon last time and then you just didn't want to use Luocha anymore, and then you pull for Lingsha. This Lycon can just basically step on over there, right? But that being said, I don't think anyone else in the game can make use of this Lycon aside from Lingsha. I don't know if Gather really wants it, because Gather also have his own like 4-star alternatives, right? Because we do have a lot of very good abundance 4-star Lycons, right? Pose of Conversation, Shared Feeling, Quick Procro, even Warm Shortens Cold Night. This has been a very good use when you want to use it against Castorice, because it does heal by quite a substantial amount. So I would say because of all these kind of like substitutes, not really that insane if you wanted to say. Actually, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna drop you the very niche. I feel like at the end of the day, when you want to pull a signature Lycon, it's not just because of the Lycon itself, because most of the time, for almost every single scenario, units that stands to gain the most from the signature tends to be DPS. Because if you are a Harmony class, there's this thing called Duns. If you are in the Nihility class, there's this thing called Resolution. And then if you're Abundance or Preservation, they have all sorts of alternatives that can basically make them come close, if not as close as possible to the 5-star alternatives. Only the main DPS usually stands to gain a lot of upgrade. And if you pulling for like a Abundance or like a support Lycon or a sustain Lycon means sacrificing at 20-30% of your damage, for example, for Castorice S1, you know, My Day S1, Yunli S1, Feixiao S1, that I personally don't think it's gonna be that worth it. So I'm gonna drop into the very niche category. Okay, E2 Imbibitor Lunae Lycon. I think I saw people using this to a certain extent, even for Yunli. I have heard of Yunli players trying to use this, but it is a pretty considerable downgrade because of the torrent value and the additional energy. Because technically you could generate this infinitely if you don't really want to use skill, but I think there's a very cope option. I personally would always run Yunli's signature. Outside from that, it is mainly just a deal bot, because almost every single destruction class unit, they are making use of their skills, right? Might they use a skill, Yunli use a skill, Jing use a skill, who else are destruction units? But basically most destruction units in the game, they basically all use a skill. So I can't really see a world where you will want to run this on another different unit. But if you do have Imbibitor Lunae, not just an E0 by the way, right? I feel that if you are running a E0 S0 Imbibitor Lunae, it's better off to just sort of just chill and just see what sort of other DPS have to come up with, because you are essentially investing in Light Kun that still makes this E0 S1 unit perform pretty suboptimally until at least you get an E2, and that's an E2, right? So I would probably chuck this into very, very niche. In fact, yeah, I'm just gonna chuck it to very. Actually, you know what? Nah, I don't think you can unigame. Okay, it is what it is. Okay, Fu Xuan's is good. I really, really like Fu Xuan's Light Kun. Okay, I also gave Fu Xuan pretty high rating for itself, but I think Fu Xuan's Light Kun, despite having a lot of alternative options, this gives you a quality of life that goes beyond endgame content. And it's something that you probably would have felt if you play as you a lot. So Fu Xuan has this unique ability where at the beginning of each wave, you restore almost max HP, right? This might not be felt for your like pure vision or whatever, but if you play as you, right, and you get hit with the debuff that turns your team into 1 HP or something, and all that kind of stuff. I have had a lot of times in my life like, oh my god, this Fu Xuan Light Kun changes us back to full HP again because of this, right? Outside from that, I feel that the max HP, the damage, and the energy regeneration, they're all pretty useful stats. I've been running this on my waifu. To be fair, you don't really need this specifically from a sustain standpoint, because from a sustain standpoint, there are a lot of good 4-star alternatives, as well as the texture of memories, which is pretty nice. I really don't like the fact that this effect rest is only for the wearer. If this was applied to the entire team, I think it would have been a lot better, because chances are if you're running texture of memories for your Fu Xuan, if your Fu Xuan is a very poor build, this will save your Fu Xuan, right? Because this is technically a little bit more of a shield. But if you don't have a very, very well built Fu Xuan, it could be a little bit annoying. And generally speaking, if you are still gonna be getting like one shot from all the kind of stuff, texture of memories technically doesn't really save you. It's more so to protect Fu Xuan herself, right? I think for most enemies as well as the endgame content right now, if you want to use Fu Xuan, chances are you are probably up against a dangerous target, right? So for example, Flame Reaver's one-shot, right? Flame Reaver has this absolutely ridiculous one-shot ability when we play Pollux, right? When Pollux comes on in the future, right, with the TV, all these kind of bosses, they do have some sort of like this huge AoE one-shot capable nuke. And if you were to run a Fu Xuan, make sure that she is built well enough to basically tank out the hit, and then she can then cast the reversal, the major reversal, and then she just heals back up. But I feel that this Light Kun is very okay. Maybe this is a bit too high, but I personally like this a lot, right? Especially if you play as you and you get one shot. I think niche is a pretty good category. 4-star alternatives, I think they are not too bad. Day One of My Life, Landau's Choice, all these are quite nice. Trend of Universal Market, I would say, is really only recommended if you're going to be playing Fusion with Acheron. But then again, we have discovered that Acheron still is lacking a dedicated sustain slot, right? And in the future, if they release a additional sustain for Acheron, who knows what's going to be happening going towards it, right? So generally speaking, these are the 4-star options for Fusion. I would say this is going to be the niche category, but I really like. Okay, this is a good ass poodle. The unfortunate thing for follow-ups is that they don't really feel it anymore. I would argue that if follow-up was the flavor, right, this can be one of the highest value pool, because I don't know who the hell designed this thing, or that they left out a line. This effect can stack. This tame state is stackable. It doesn't limit it to a single Light Kun, so you theoretically could run 2 different copies of these in like 300 units and stack on tame. So that is pretty nice. Aside from that, I feel like the stats is given by this thing itself is also very, very considerable. You have crit rate, which is something that a lot of the Hun units definitely need. Follow-up attack damage, which is something that, you know, we have seen from Feixiao, Topaz, March 7th, you know, Moze, all of them can make use of this. And this tame state also counts as a debuff. So back in those days when I was playing like Daughter Ratio, right, this E1 S1 Topaz was sort of like the benchmark to start playing Daughter Ratio, because if you don't get the E1 S1, your Daughter Ratio might not even land 100% debuff, which is super fucking annoying. But if you had this, then it's sort of solved the problem, because this does count as a debuff. So I would say that this is a very, very good pool, but the main reason why I wouldn't put this in this category over here is because the current landscape, it doesn't really favor the follow-up team units that much, except for maybe Nikador. Right? Nikador was actually super, super good for Feixiao and her crew. But recently, I think they have been starting to move away. I do want to see what sort of other future potential banners come out, because we really know for a fact, in the future, we're going to be getting Cypher and Higher Seed, right? So if the meta for 3.3 is going to start shifting away back from the heavily AoE focused things into single target focus things, which we sort of gotten a sneak peek, because Anaxa, like I mentioned in my previous videos, he is sort of like single target focus, right? And then we have the APOC shadows against Huohuo, which is legit straight up a 1v1. So I really wouldn't be too surprised if we see a resurgence, right? A resurgence of hunt units or follow-up team units with Feixiao but when it comes off, and that is my personal opinion. But for now, I'm gonna chalk this as our very first good pull. Okay, Huan Light Cone. I think Huan Light Cone is fine, right? I think Huan Light Cone is fine. Energy regeneration is great, and this technically helps you fix one of the biggest issues with Huan, which is a lack of an emergency heal, right? Because if you were to use this, it helps you amplify the emergency heal even more, and it can improve the comfort of running Huan as a sustain. Because one of the problems that I've been seeing recently with running Huan is that if the enemy decides to hit your same guy consecutively back to back, and unless you have an ultimate saved up, there was nothing you could have possibly done to prevent that one shot. So this Light Cone, it can directly improve your healing output towards the guy with the lowest HP, which helps solve one of Huan's issues, which is, you know, if the guy keeps hitting the same guy, you might get a little bit cooked, right? This is honestly doesn't really matter that much, right? The attack honestly changes very little. Energy regeneration is a little bit more of a comfort, but I would say this is probably the main reason to basically improve the comfort of Huan. If you wanted to use Huan as like a fully utility-based healer and you don't care about the sustain whatsoever, you only care about like getting as much energy as possible, then frankly speaking, running S5 post-op conversation would be, you know, would suffice. Because technically speaking, post-op at a highest rarity, it gives you 16% energy regeneration, which is honestly quite a bit. Shared feeding also gives you a little bit of energy for the entire team, and also so that's quick progress. So when it comes to like energy regeneration, you do have a pretty decent chunk of 4-star options. So I'm not too sure if you are gonna be spending Stellar Jades just for a little bit more quality of life when it comes to this healing, because unless you get S5 Huan Light Cone to get a 20% energy regeneration, I don't think most people can debate the value when it comes to post-op, right? So for that, I would say it's pretty good, but me personally, I'm just gonna be parking in the niche category, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, Argenti Light Cone, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't think anybody needs to talk about this thing, alright? It started out as a pretty decent design, which is to focus around the idea of a unit that can charge up their energy to a very high degree, right? Up to 180 energy, you get additional ultimate damage increase as well as a crit damage increase. And they decided, you know what, fuck Argenti, we're gonna release the Herta with the Herta Signature Light Cone directly power creeping everything that Argenti has to offer. Because if you had 180 energy, that means you had 140 energy. And if you had 140 energy, who would you rather? Would you want a little bit more damage, or would you literally just want one additional skill point on top of buffing both your skill and your ultimate for 3 turns, right? So, at every phase of the game, if you want to pull for Argenti Signature, you're gonna just pull for a Herta Signature. So that's what it is, right? So we're gonna chow this into the very skip option, Ruan Mei Signature Light Cone. I have gotten flack for this before back in the days. Alright, I've talked about this in my previous Light Cone tier list, right? People insisted that we wanted to pull Ruan Mei Signature at the top of very good pull back in the days because of the additional 10 energy per wave, which unlocks a lot of your potential for your starting openers, namely your swim break that is HMC, gaining enough energy to cast the ultimate turn 0, so that you can instantly pivot back into Firefly or any of the break DPS to get a swim break buff, right? But I feel like at this day and age, I don't think the 10 energy is all that. I don't even think the skill point is all that anymore. And sometimes, I might just prefer running this thing called Dance. If you really wanted to go for the additional bit of an action value, right? Because if you're going to be saving action value, there's something that can never be replaced by squeezing out from like your units, right? You could squeeze out more skill points. You could squeeze out more energy, right? Wave 1, you save a little bit of skill points. Wave 1, you get a little bit more energy. But action value is something that can never be replaced. And I have seen runs with Ruan Mei using Dance. And it is gonna be a pretty decent case. So because of the presence of Dance, right? Or maybe if you don't want it, you want to run like Memories to the Past, I can't see in good faith that this is gonna be in the tip top of the highest category. But I would say that if you do have a Ruan Mei S1, it is gonna be quite comfortable, especially if you're gonna be running this with your break teams, right? Your Firefly, Rappa, anyone that still makes of HMC because of this S1, you can instantly activate HMC ultimate without breaking the enemy. So that could be quite nice. But then again, HMC has transformed, right? HMC, they transformed into this thing called Mimi. And nowadays, break teams, they're basically rolling with the likes of Lingsha or Gallagher plus Ruan Mei plus Fugue plus your break DPS. And by that sense, you don't really care about the energy that much anymore, right? And the skill point, honestly, maybe Lingsha means, Right, Lingsha means could use the skill point by a little bit because Lingsha is a pretty skill point dependent DPS. So I think I could see some use in that, which is why I still think it's a pretty decent pool. But I don't think this is going to be like the tip of the category anymore. So that's going to be Ruan Mei. It is what it is, right? Alright, daughter ratios like which actually came in a very, very interesting time because we are currently also having daughter ratio as a banners rerun, right? We are getting, please check out my before you pull daughter ratio video. I promise that before you pull daughter, it is absolute cinema, right? So please check out the video before watching this. But this is gonna be the baptism of pure thoughts, right? This light cone, I'm gonna be real, is one of the few light cones that's better than the unit themselves. Because the main reason why, you know, like how Herta shaped the face of every edition, Feixiao, my wife, she shaped the future of Han, right? And daughter ratio signature light cone, it was so synergistic with Feixiao, you were literally just losing maybe like 3 to 5% final damage compared to signature light cone from Feixiao herself. And sometimes, if you want to think about the additional ultimates that you could have generated from maybe, for example, like an E2 Feixiao, if you want to go all the way through up to E6, there are moments where you could literally get this up even higher with daughter ratio, because this is for your follow-up attacks, which is inclusive of Feixiao's talent as well as her ultimate. So this was so synergistic with Feixiao that I could see a very good case where if you pulled for Feixiao back then and you had daughter ratio to light cone, there was no reason for you to pull for Feixiao's signature light cone, because it was just such a huge upgrade. And let's be real, no one was fucking using daughter ratio of Feixiao, right? This light cone, it was one of the few DPS light cones that could actually see a pretty good use outside from the DPS that they were intended to build for, right? However, as of this day and age, daughter ratio himself, you're never gonna pull. Okay, I mean, like, you're probably not gonna be pulling for daughter ratio, right? I think I said it in my who to pull for in the tier list video the other day, whether you should be pulling for daughter ratio. So you are basically just pulling for this specific signature light code, either for Feixiao or for a lot of the more niche units. Me personally, I actually use daughter ratio's light code for Yanqing. Yep, because Yanqing's follow-up attacks, it can be quite consistent if the luck allows it, and it also gives you a lot of crit damage, right? So I have seen some niche cases where I use this light code outside of even Feixiao, but like I said, it is pretty niche, right? If you want to use this for units like Han March 7th or Topaz, or rather not Topaz, Han March 7th, Topaz or Mose, which are sort of like the sub DPS follow-up, I would personally just go for the Topaz signature light code, right? This is more so for like that main DPS, and then if you don't have a Feixiao signature, I think this would suffice. So I would say this is probably somewhere here, right? It is more niche for your main DPS. If you have a Feixiao and you don't want to pull for the signature light code and you have a daughter ratio light code rolling around, you can just run it. Doesn't really matter that much. So for example, right now, if you're a Feixiao main, you missed out on Feixiao's banner, right? You pulled E0 L0 Feixiao last time, but right now you have a daughter ratio signature light code right now. You could just go for the signature just to upgrade that Feixiao vertically, and then you can just skip Feixiao's light code next time in the future, right? You could do that. Or if you are some crazy people that want to main like Yanqing, I think this is one of Yanqing's best slot. I could correct me if I'm wrong. Outside from that, I don't really see too much use, because for like I mentioned, other Han units, you can always just run them with the Topaz signature, right? So that's gonna be that for daughter ratio signature. Okay, Black Swan's light code. This is just a damn shame. This is a damn shame. I'm gonna keep it about Nihility light codes, I swear to God, man. Unless your name is Acheron, you just get fucking gutted, bro, right? Black Swan signature light code. On paper, on release, in 2.0, excellent. EHR, Proffer allows you to increase attack as well as ignoring your target's defense for every single one of these stacks. That is up to a 28.8%. This is 4, right? Wind shear, burn, shock, or bleed. Yeah. So this is a 28.8% defense on a signature light code, which is honestly really good for Black Swan back then, because for DOT in 2.0, it was basically Kafka plus Black Swan. I know there were like comments back in the days where they were like, oh my god, Black Swan's damage was the same as Sampo or some shit, right? It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, Black Swan was one of, if not the biggest hitters for DOT, and even till this day, she's still, there are no other DOT units that can basically match Black Swan's Arcana. But whether or not DOT is a viable team comp, that's a completely different subject. The real unfortunate reality about Reforged Remembrance is this thing right here. Jiaoqiu's signature light cone, it literally straight up power crab Black Swan, just like how the Herta power crab Argenti signature. Because if you guys have not seen my videos for Jiaoqiu's early access, I've literally slapped on Jiaoqiu's signature to test out the damage with DOT teams. Your DOT units, the DOT themselves, they literally deal more using Jiaoqiu than Black Swan. Black Swan literally helps contribute more damage for the entire team if you were to use Jiaoqiu's signature Lycon, which is kind of crazy, right? Because this is the increased damage received, which can be applied to pretty much everyone. And this, unfortunately, is only going to be the wearer, right? So in the future, I feel like the direction where DOT is going to be taking place is that they want to sort of stack on as many DOT as possible, combine them into one, and most likely let units like Kafka trigger the DOT to do exceptional damage. And if you're going to be taking the combination of all the different DOTs from different units, then profit only applying to a single unit is very, very unfortunate, because this is basically applied to the entire team, right? Any unit in the corner state, this is basically a debuff that anyone hits it, you get this. So with that, I unfortunately cannot recommend Black Swan signature Lycon, right? Even Black Swan itself, if you wanted to pull for Black Swan, just get Jiaoqiu's signature. It's just way better in that regard, right? So that's gonna be that. Wait, it's not getting buffed. Oh shit, my bad. Okay, Sparkle's signature. Here we go. Here we go. All right, here we go. Ooh, here we go. All right, I have been okay. You are basically part of two camps when it comes to Sparkle's signature Lycon, right? You either fucking love Sparkle's signature because it gives you a free 10% crit rate and 28% crit damage. That is 48 crit value, by the way. 10% crit rate of 48 crit damage. Or you fucking hate Sparkle's signature because it was in direct competition with Dance. You're either one of these two people, right? Honestly, there isn't really a huge way to say which one is better, which one is worse. Because if, let's just say, your Reddit quality, right? Like, let's just say you're running like Acheron with like 40% crit rate, right? But then you slap on your E1, you slap on the Diver, you slap on the Izumo, and you slap on the Sparkle signature Lycon with like Fusion, and then somehow or rather everything comes together and you get like a 100% crit rate Acheron, sure, go for it. Because at the end of the day, if you miss your crit, it is gonna be a miserable experience. Looking good. What the fuck? Hey, MiHoYo, fix your fucking game. And if you're able to also overcome the action value breakpoints, that is to say, for example, if you're already going to be hitting a 200 speed Sparkle, so you're already running like a Ego 4-piece on effective 200 speed, or if you are going to be not utilizing Dance as properly because your DPS speed is basically tied to your Sparkle speed, then you don't really need Dance, right? If your gear is going to be that good, you don't need it, right? On the flip side, right, if you already have good enough crit ratio, right, if you don't need the crit anymore and you just want to have as much action value as possible, because me personally, if you'd ask me which one is easier to build, crit or speed, I would say crit is always easier because you're gunning for two subsets, whereas speed is just that one line, and if you miss that one line, it's like, oh, go fuck yourself, right? So because of that, me personally, I'll chuck this in very, very niche, right? But I think this is going to be between players to players. I have pretty much never thought about a day in my life, oh my god, I wish I had Sparkle signature. Every single day, okay, yep, I have DDD, I have DDD, I have DDD. I will never think of anything outside. In fact, I literally get uncomfortable playing Sparkle without DDD because I don't have the action very advanced for the entire team, right? So that is going to be for me personally, but I can also understand players that actually want to run this, right? So that's going to be, okay, Acheron signature. Okay, this is basically non-negotiable in 2025, right? If you want to play Acheron, this is like the easiest, most direct vertical investment you can upgrade for Acheron, right? If you want to play Acheron, there really is almost no easier investments for the same amount of Stellar Jades to the Acheron team. Like, even if you were to pull for Jiaoqiu, even if you, let's just say, Cypher worked with Acheron, even if they were to pull for like an Acheron sustained feature, Acheron signature Lycon for that price in a Lycon to offer that much benefits to Acheron in 2025, there's no other better way, right? If you're still playing E0 Azure Acheron, I mean, hey, hats off to you. That's absolutely fucking crazy. But me personally, I feel like if you are pulling Acheron, right? If you wanted to play Acheron, any sort of vertical investment that you're thinking of with like Jiaoqiu, like I don't know if it's gonna be Cypher, everything else, just get a Lycon first. Because technically, Lycons are always cheaper than units. It's 10 less pool to get the max PD, and a 75% chance to win the 75%, right? So I would say Acheron mains, this is at 2025, you just get this thing, right? If you don't play Acheron, right? If you don't play Acheron, I would say there are even some cases where I can see myself running this. So for example, I've played this crit Kafka build. Again, check out my video from reviving DOT in 2025. I ran a crit Kafka build, and this was my signature Lycoon, right? And I also can slap on this signature Lycoon with DPS Welt Yang, right? DPS Welt Yang, I don't know, DPS Kafka, DPS Seal Wolf. This, technically, it can help you by quite a bit. If you wanted to go for that goofy little TikTok team comms, sure, right? But the bottom line is, if you are an Acheron main, just get this thing. This should be your #1 priority if you're an Acheron main. Everything else that really is, even if you can say you have a substitute, right? Like Boundless, Choreo, Guna, and Sleep Well, the issue with these Lycons is not because of the damage, it's the stacks. And the stacks are irreplaceable nowadays, right? Lacking the stacks, especially in, for example, against the Nikador fight, the enemies don't even move. In the Flame River fight, the enemy don't even move, right? So even units like Jiaoqiu, they're struggling to generate the stacks required for Acheron to let go of the ultimate. And this is the easiest and most straightforward way for Acheron mains to get this in, right? So TLDR, if you're Acheron main, just get this thing. If you don't play Acheron, you can just chuck it to somewhere around here. If you play, poop, right? Okay, Aventurine Bars Lycon. This Lycon, I feel like you can sort of tie this together with Acheron as well, because the Lycon itself actually offers 1 stack of debuff, right? This is actually considered as a debuff, and it is one of, if not the only reasons why people even consider this Lycon, because if they want to care about like defense or like crit damage, it's not that important, right? Because from a defense standpoint, you technically have even more defense with Moment of Victory, right? For example, especially for somebody that has been losing like 75-25 their entire life, look at my account, right? Okay, this is not representative of like everybody, but me personally, I have S6 Moment of Victory, and I didn't buy a single copy in the shop in my entire life. All right, so if you have been playing this game long enough, you lose enough 75-25, eventually you're gonna get into this, right? And if you are worried about your Aventurine sustaining for your team, I would say that Moment of Victory is a very, very good alternative for Aventurine, right? It does give you quite a bit of defense effect, even a little bit more than you would like to. I would say it's pretty good. The crit damage honestly doesn't matter that much, especially because your Aventurine's damage, majority of it is not even from himself. It is from the fact that you're getting carried by Bubbin, right? If you're not even going to be running Bubbin and Aventurine, every single one of those follow-up attacks is very, very negligible, especially in 2025 where like HP inflation, the boss are 10 billion HP. You really think that Aventurine is going to be dealing any damage? Yeah, I don't think so, right? So this is honestly the only reason why people consider this, because you get this one additional debuff, right? The debuff itself, it is quite nice. Damage taken 10% is pretty universal, and it gives you one additional stack for your Acheron. So if you wanted to, you could get this, but I would say that it is not going to be that game-changing unless you are somebody that is going to be using Acheron with Aventurine. Then the additional stack could be very, very useful. So I will also personally put this in the niche category, right? Just because of opportunity cost and everything that you can use in place of this signature Lycon. Okay, Barbin's signature. Barbin's signature. I love talking about Barbin's signature, guys. I fucking love talking about Barbin's signature, right? Where is it again? Flowing Night Glow, right? Flowing Night Glow. TLDR, it's 15% energy regeneration. That's it. That's pretty much it, right? All these things here, it doesn't really matter that much. Is effectively a little bit of an increase for damage, right? Increase your Barbin's attack, so technically Barbin having more attack can give more attack to your entire team, and then this damage is increased by 24% up until Barbin's turn, right? This is pretty much almost 100% uptime. Don't really have to care about it. The main reason why people even consider this is because of this energy regeneration. And Barbin as a unit, right, in HSR, for the longest time, she has been the face of like zero cycles, the face of version 2 to version 1 DPS, right? She has been a long-standing GOAT, right? Her shoulders are fucking tired from carrying pretty much every single team in HSR. And one of the reasons why she's starting to lose this placement is because of Tribbie. And Tribbie's ultimate uptime is not as reliant as Barbin getting the follow-up attack frequency of hits. And because we are starting to see a lot of these other units that don't hit as frequently, you are starting to run into an issue where your Barbin doesn't get enough ultimate to get a 100% ultimate uptime. And if you cannot get a 100% ultimate uptime of Barbin, if you have to, let's just say, waste one entire turn for the rest of your DPS units, that is a huge DPS loss, right? Because unlike Tribbie, Barbin's buffs, I would say like almost like 80 if not 90% of the entire damage you're getting is within Robin's singing state. If she stops singing, your entire team basically just does no damage. Whereas for Tribbie, you are very easily able to maintain a 100% ultimate uptime even on a HP rope. Even on a HP rope, because of just how frequently she can hit the enemies, and the moment in the future when you're going to be pivoting into a single target environment, simply swap out Tribbie into an energy regeneration, and I'm almost certain you can get a 100% ultimate time. And that is why, you know, between the skills, which is like damage taken, right, damage taken as well as rest down, as compared to Barbin's attack buff, which, let's just be real, is not going to be as universal, we are starting to see a little bit of a cracks in terms of Barbin's long-standing tradition, right? Now, whether or not should you be pulling for this signature light cone, it boils down to one thing. Do you have this? Do you have a Bronya S1? And for me, right, for example, if you want to take a look at my own account, if your account has an S5 battle isn't over, this is technically even more energy regeneration than a Barbin S1. Alright, the skill point is just a little bit more of like a little bit more of a quality of life, or a skill point, maybe just one more skill point. This thing just doesn't really matter that much, because at the end of the day, as long as you can maintain your Barbin ultimate to 100% uptime, then your damage is gonna be very good, right? So it really depends. If you don't even need S5, right? Even if you do have a S1, I would say that this light cone's value, it does go down by quite a bit, right? It does go down by quite a bit. You're basically losing roughly 5%-ish, right? Sometimes it might be game breaking, right? Because you're technically still missing 5% energy regeneration compared to Barbin's 10%. Nowadays, we have ways to sort of mitigate this. We have our 2-piece energy regeneration from Luocha, which has been very good. You can run Von as well. But if you're up against environments where the enemies don't hit you at all, that's why I think that this Barbin S1 is going to be quite good. Because there are some endgame content where the enemies just hit you non-stop, right? I'm talking about units like Huohuo, Flame Weaver. Because they hit you so frequently, you don't even feel that this energy shortfall is going to be that significant, which is why I don't think this light cone is going to be that crazy. But if you are going to be against, like, you know, you just don't have enough energy, then you could just decide to go for this and just guarantee yourself a bare minimum of 15% energy regeneration. But I would say the most game-changing aspect for your rotations of Barbin, right? If this S1 isn't going to save you, it's probably not going to save you. It will be her E2. Yep. E2 Barbin actually has a much higher energy regeneration for your entire team. Yeah, so you essentially go from 2 to 3, which is basically like a 33% increase to everything that we're going to be getting, right? So if you are facing an energy regeneration problem, and you're facing it by like a huge margin, for example, if you play DOT right now, you run Barbin with Kafka and Black Swan, I can almost guarantee you're running out of energy. With or without the S1, it's not going to change anything. You're still going to be missing the energy required to get 100% ultimate, unless you get this E2, which I think it could help you to mitigate a little bit more. So outside from that, let's just say you're running Barbin with like your follow-up team. You are most likely still not going to be running into energy issues just because the follow-up hits very frequently, right? And because of that, everything aside, I personally feel this thing is still a pretty good pool, around the same caliber as Ruan Mei. Now that I think about it, right? Depends on the scenario, but I don't think this is gonna be a very good pool that you're gonna be getting from Acheron, right? Okay, that's gonna be that. Boothill. Boothill's signature Lycon. I'm gonna be completely goddamn honest. You actually don't really look at the comparisons with the 5 stars, because all the 5 stars are shit, right? This is the only Hunt 5-star that actually gives bro a break effect, as well as the ignores target's defense on top of the increasing speed. Alright, this is the only 5-star. The competition for Boothill signature light cone actually comes more from the 4 stars as well as the 3 stars. For example, this river flows in spring. Some people actually run this on Boothill because it is still a 12% speed buff. And for Boothill specifically, you do need to stack him on with a lot of speed. In fact, I believe that Boothill's highest damaging sets right now, it is actually not 4-piece Iron Cavalry. It's going to be hitting 200 effective speed, running 4-piece Eagle, right? So you could do a crazy ass build, for example, a 200 speed effective Boothill with a 200 speed effective Sunday. that is gonna give you a lot of opportunities to let go of the hits. And because of that, just getting the speed alone is gonna be giving you quite a decent chunk of improvement, right? But that was last time. This was back in those days. We had nothing else. Now we have this Shadowed by Night. Now we actually have a 4-star that gives you up to a 56% break effect on top of this 12% speed lasting for 2 turns, triggering 1 turn, right? So you could imagine that even back in the days, people were already running River Pulse in Spring, and now we have a even better light cone. To be fair, it is a gacha light cone, so maybe you couldn't even... Okay, I don't even think I have this at S5. Now that I think about it. Okay, I have it at S5. Alright, hey, just pull better, right? Yeah, but if you are unable to get this to like a decent imprint, there's also a 3-star alternative. Yep, you can run Adversarial, guys. Because the thing with Boothill, right, is the damage really is you are getting a lot of damage just simply from the speed itself. And as long as you can hit those speed thresholds, everything else is sort of like the icing to the cake, right? So if you really wanted to, you could cook something like this. I would say though, Boothill's signature light code is still a pretty considerable damage increase because it ignores defense. And I don't think I need to say why ignore defense is going to be super good, especially with Super Break. Because if you take a look at your Super Break designs, right, a lot of the kit revolves around defense break. Specifically vertical investments. And at the end of the day, if you're pulling for a light cone, you're basically pulling for a vertical investment, right? Every single E1 Super Breakers, I shit you not, go and check. E1 Firefly, E1 Rappa, E1 Boothill all have increased defense now, right? Increased defense penetration. E1 Lingsha gives you that shit. E1 Ruan Mei gives you that shit. 4-piece Cavalry gives you defense now. So basically everything around the Super Break team is to stack on this defense now as much as possible. So if you are able to basically stack this with an additional 20% of target even, you can get a pretty substantial mileage out of this. If you don't have all these external sources of defense down, you might not feel that much about this target's defense, alright? So with that, I personally would also probably chuck this in the... I'll give it in the niche category, right? Unless you have a lot of vertical investments already. So you have your E1 Ruan Mei, you have your E1 Lingsha and everything, or even if you have an E1 Boothill, okay, yeah, sure. Right? I think this is a pretty good pull, just to run out everything to a 100% defense node, right? So other than that, I'm gonna put this in the niche category. Firefly's light cone. I think this answer is honestly very straightforward, right? I feel like this is a very straightforward answer, right? Firefly, our favorite girlfriend of Honkai Starbucks. Whereabouts should dream last? 60% break effect, 24% increased break damage as well as speed roll by 20%. Okay, TLDR. This light cone by itself, it honestly could have been like a Boothill scenario where, you know, it gets no other combination class in the other limited 5-stars, right? Because all the other limited 5-star disruption, they are focusing on more break, right? Or not break, sorry. Crit damage, crit, all the damage. But unfortunately, the Herta came into my life. And then she's like, nope, fuck you. Save your money. Here's 4 of an Aeon. And with that, Firefly's light cone, unfortunately, just not really, definitely not power crap, right? You're still gonna be dealing more damage with Firefly's signature, but 4 of an Aeon is literally a free-to-play light cone that everybody should be getting, especially as like a relatable Firefly player. And if you're thinking about vertical investments in Firefly team, you should be using the cost for your S1 into either the E1 Firefly, which will solve her skill point problem, which will give her additional defense break, or even and also getting the E1 bridges you towards E2, right? If you don't want to get that, you could even consider like Lingsha's signature light cone also gives her quite a bit of an additional source of damage. So because every single one of these signature light cones, you're basically presenting an opportunity cost to both other light cones as well as potential islands, right? So by having an alternative that's basically free to play and you can chuck this in, I would always recommend players try to get the E1 S0 Firefly first before getting E0 S1 Firefly. Then in the future, if you have even more vertical investment, getting the E2 Firefly would definitely change the gameplay for all your Firefly teams to like a huge degree, right? Unless you do get an E0 S1, which means you're probably gonna be a lot further compared to the E2. And I think the E2 Firefly, not saying that it's a must, but it is a game changer, such as your E2 Dale, such as your E2 Herta. Maybe not as crazy as them, but E2 Firefly definitely plays a lot different from the E0. Right? So because of that, I would say this is gonna be okay. I would say, you know what, very niche, right? I'm gonna give my girlfriend some face. I would say very niche, because at the end of the day, if you do have that vertical investments that E1 or E2, eventually you can consider that the S1 one day, right? But I would say it's very niche. Okay. Jade's light cone. This is one of my favorite light. This is not Jade. This is one of my favorite light cones for one of my favorite units in HSR. Qingque. This light cone is designed perfectly for Qingque. Yep, one of the reasons why I even was like, oh my god, fuck man, if I skip Jade, then I don't get the light. Bro, this light cone, it makes Qingque, it's legitimately perfect. Crit rate increase, and every 20% increase of crit damage over 120 increase your follow-up attack by 20% out of it, which is gonna be a 80%, okay, not 80%, 48% follow-up damage increase on top of ignoring your target's defense of 20%, which stacks on perfectly with your Quantum 4 piece, your E2 Sparkle, also your defense. So this is legit built perfect for Qingque. Now, unfortunately, it really depends up to you. Do you want to use Qingque? If you don't want to use Qingque, this only other place most likely is just going to be Jade, because no other evolution is going to be focusing that much on the basic attack damage themselves, right? Because for the Herta, most of the damage is going to be coming from the skill as well as the enhanced skill. Right? Even though ultimate does a little bit, it is not going to be the main thing. And if you want to choose between this or like the Herta signature icon, always get a Herta signature icon first for the Herta. But if you want to play some other alternatives, then this is pretty much just for Jade as well as QQ. But for these two units, this light cone works exceptionally well. Very, very good stats, defense, ignore crit value, everything all into one. I would say that I can chuck this into the... Then we have a lot of niche category. You know what? Fuck it. Let's just try niche, right? It could be... Okay, by the way, all these are not in order, by the way. Alright, it's just like, this is not better than this or better than this. It's just like in the same categories, around the same ballpark. I would probably give Jade a little bit higher, but I want to see how she's going to be scaling for the future endgame, because the light cone is only as good as the unit. You get what I'm saying? And Jade right now is very, very good against Flame Weaver, against all of our endgame content, against Pure Fiction. So Jade herself as a unit is performing very well. So I can make an argument that this is a pretty good pool, especially if you really want to pull for Jade. But if Jade herself as a unit starts to fall off, because Jade on release, she was pretty bad. Nobody wanted to use Jade because there was no environment to use Jade except for Pure Vision. And if you wanted to pull a unit for Pure Vision, there are units like Himeko and Baby Herta, which just reduces the value that your strategies could have gotten you if you want to pull for Jade specifically back then, right? I do want to see how the future endgame content is going to start shaping up before making a decision whether or not this like was going to be that worth it. But if you don't pull for Jade in the first place, then I don't even think you will consider this unless you are a crazy QQ main. Then I think you can pull this for QQ, right? So I'll chuck it here for now. But if Jade manages to maintain her position in the meta, especially with Anaxa just coming out, especially with the potentially hindered focus towards single target content, we'll see how it goes. Right? So for now, I'm just gonna be a niche to be a little bit safe. Okay, Yunli light cone. Ah man, you know what? It sounds fucking crazy, but like holy shit, man, it's a ridiculous pool. I will honestly would put it as a ridiculous pool, but let's just be honest. Yunli is not that popular. You know what I'm saying? You know, Yunli doesn't get as much love from both the player base as well as the devs, generally speaking, right? At least compared to Acheron. So for that, I'm gonna put this in a very, very good pool. In the good pool, but not very, very good pool. Because at the end of the day, like I mentioned, the light cone is only as good as unit himself, right? Yunli herself, she performs like completely like a different unit with or without this signature. Because this signature, not only does it increase your taunt value, which is one of the best ways to ensure that she gets hit, which means she does a counter, which gets additional energy. And on top of that, you also increase the crit damage and the damage dealt for all of your, which is inclusive of your ultimate, right? The taunt value itself is one of the main reasons why Yunli is just so good on Yunli, because she desperately wants to get hit every single possible turn as much as possible, right? I think the value is like 500 taunt value or 600, I can't wrong, but it basically changes from the likelihood of her getting hit with 2 harmony and 1 sustain at roughly 60-ish%. It goes up to almost 80-ish% from a single light cone. So in the game of probability, this is gonna help you a lot, especially if the guy only hits a single target. But Yunli herself as a unit, she has never really been the face of HSR's DPS. She has never really been tier 0, just because as a unit herself, she is classified as a more niche playstyle. And I can also understand why, because I don't even think the casual player base will ever want to imagine parrying. When do you parry? When do you build your pity for your parry? When do you use the ultimate? Do you use this for the more ultimate? It is honestly quite a bit. And if they don't want to play this, I think that's completely fair, because, you know, for the same amount of cost, you could invest in the Castorice. You can invest in the Herta. For even an Aglaea or Mighty, right? You're still gonna be getting the bang of value. I would say that because Yunli as a unit, it is gonna be appealing to a much less player base. And if you don't pull for Yunli, you can basically just run this Lycon with Blade, kind of. But then Mighty's Lycon also exists, so definitely more niche. But I would say because of just how good this is with Yunli, and Yunli herself as a unit, even though she's not gonna be tier 0, she's still exceptionally strong as a unit herself. I would say this is in the good pool, right? So that's pretty much gonna be it. Okay, I'll start from this. Okay, Jiaoqiu, like I don't really need to mention this too much, but it is basically the upgraded version for Black Swan in every way possible. In fact, I would say that this Jiaoqiu Lycon, even though you could replace this guy with Resolution, which is a defense style, but because of the synergy that you're going to be getting with EHR, with increased damage received, we could see a potential rise of this Lycon when DOT comes back. And I don't mean this by if, it's when. I don't believe that DOT is going to be dead. We see the Violin grow, we see physical DOT, and when DOT comes back in the future, I would say that this is a pretty damn good investment. So I would say this is probably in the tip-top of niche, potentially even a good pool when DOT actually does come back to the first server. But for now, you will never really run this with DOT since DOT themselves, they are just cooked. For Jiaoqiu, this is a pretty decent upgrade, but then again, you also have access to Resolution, which is also a pretty decent alternative. So I would say niche category for now, but when DOT comes back in the future, you know, up, right? All in on. Okay, Feixiao. I'm so biased, so I'm just gonna run it over here. Yeah, next. Okay, Lingsha's like okay, for real. Okay, Feixiao's like okay, first of all, can we just appreciate this, chat? Can we just appreciate this? Hold up. Oh my god, look at that. Oh my god, bro. Oh man, bro, I don't know, man. That's my wife, man. Holy shit, you know, it's just so good. It's just so fucking good, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but anyways, yeah, Jiaoqiu, that's Jiaoqiu. Feixiao's signature Lycon, I would say that this is unfortunately not in the same caliber as Acheron, just because of the fact that there's this thing called ratio signature Lycon. I can't believe this shit, right? Yep, because of ratio signature Lycon's existence, this Lycon is not the end or be all. Right, it is what it is. It's opportunity cost. But I would say if you are a Feixiao main, if you are a follow-up attack main, and Feixiao is gonna be the pivotal foundation for your follow-up team comps, I would say this is an excellent choice in terms of vertical investment. If you wanted to, definitely use it. If you don't want to pull this and you already have a Dr. Richard Lycon, then I think that's also pretty fair. But generally speaking, I would say this is a very, very good, because if you want to talk about it, it is at the end of the day a 54. Where the fuck is it? It is a 54% defense reduction. 5-4 from a single Lycon. I have never seen a defense reduction value that high ever in my entire life. The main problem with this 54% defense ignore is that follow-up teams themselves, they don't have that many. Right? Barbarian has no defense ignore. Topaz has no defense ignore. Hanma 7 has no defense ignore. Nobody in a follow-up team right now has access to defense ignore. But if we are able to pivot defense ignore as a staple foundation to your follow-up attack damage, and you can scale this beyond just the 54%, I think this like only can go up to the highest tier. Because this is technically a lot higher of a defense ignore compared to even Dr. Ratio, which is only going to be at 24%, right? So this is literally more than double of Dr. Ratio. So if we do have external sources of defense ignore coming out, which can make your Feixiao ultimate hits for 100% defense ignore, this Lycon will single-handedly change the game, right? But it's just unfortunate that in the current setup we don't have access to these kits, so it's kind of like ahead of its time, right? My wife is just ahead of her time, so maybe in the future when it happens, we'll go up. For now, I'll put this as a pretty good pool. Okay, Lingsha's signature Lycon right here. Okay, I would say that this is honestly an excellent Lycon, if not for the fact that you have so many good abundance alternatives, right? Even people are like running Luocha signature just to guarantee a 2-turn ultimate, right? By itself, the effect honestly looks pretty good, right? You have break effect, you have increased damage in Warfare, which honestly is inclusive of all sources of damage, not just break damage, it's all sources of damage. And then this is gonna be boosted by another 8% with your break effect, which is always should be the case. So this is basically an 18% increase in damage for any source of damage. But unfortunately, we just have so many options for like your abundance. Sometimes you don't even care about this that much. Sometimes you just want to guarantee that ultimate uptime, which could generate even more toughness, more breaking, right? Because if you are guaranteeing a 1-turn, 2-turn ultimate, you could just sacrifice the defense ignore because toughness bar, especially for like break teams, they're super important. They are the end of be all, right? So getting that guaranteed ultimates, right, with your Luocha signature, with your pose of conversation, with your quick progress, all these kind of stuff, it could give you even more value than just this 18% defense or rather damage increase, right? So because of that, I can't really see too much value over here. But if you do want a lot more damage, and you don't really care about the ultimate uptime, you just want to do as much damage as humanly possible, I'll probably put this under the very niche category, right? Okay, Rappa's signature. Ooh. Okay, for those of you who are new to my channel, Rappa's signature, it has a bit of a drama back in the days. Yep, I still remember it to this day. Rappa's signature had a bit of a drama back in the days where basically, because like I mentioned in my previous video, right, if you're the first time watching my channel, the break community, the break DPS community, they tend to be at odds with one another quite a bit, especially the Rappa mains and the Firefly mains, right? I've seen like a lot of statements where like, you know, Rappa is better than Firefly, Firefly is better than Rappa doesn't essentially like when it comes out. So this Lycone actually has been a source of a not really an all-out drama, but like a small kerfuffle within the communities, whether or not as to Rappa needs the signature Lycone. I'ma be real, this signature Lycone is absolutely perfect for Rappa herself, right? Additional 50% action value advance. 5-0. So casting your base attack 4 times is literally giving you an extra turn. And whole ass extra turn. To put into context, if you want to go from 134 speed from 2 turns per cycle to 3 turns, that is 134 to 200. You need 66 more speed to get that 1 additional action. For Rappa, over the course of 4 actions, you get 1 additional turn, right? So in terms of action value, I don't think I've seen any other Lycone giving you this much action value on top of break effect, as well as the energy required to instantly cast an ultimate when you enter into battle, right? But that being said, I think we have also seen a lot of these kind of like comparisons, whether or not Rappa needs a signature Lycone, especially to perform in the current endgame format. And we have sort of just disproven a theory, like even at E0, S0, I think you can check a look at Pride Wins clear stats. Rappa is also considerably clearing at a very comfortable pace, at least if you have to have Fugue, Ruan Mei, and the standard team comps, right? So all these things factored in, me personally, I still think it's a very good pool. And the main reason is basically, I don't really want to judge Rappa's signature Lycone based on like, is her character unplayable or playable in the current endgame content, because we have used the exact same argument for Acheron back then as well, right? Acheron back then, you don't need her signature Lycone, you don't need it, right? Because on release, she was so fucking broken, you technically don't need it. And then Jiaoqiu came out, it made her even more broken, you technically still didn't really need it, right? But as time progresses going forward, there's only really that one train of thought where you want to get vertical investments for your specific characters in HLR, right? You either get more Idolins or the Lycone. That's it. Other than that, you pretty much just pull for a brand new team comp or a brand new support to still make that relevant DPS relevant. And because of this, I would say that Rappa's Lycone, at the end of the day, whether she needs it or don't need it, nobody can dispute the fact that this is a absolutely insane synergy Lycone with Rappa itself. So at least far more better far more than where's the bitch? Firefly synergy Lycone. Because Firefly, she has the substitute that is being default of Aeon, and Rappa's substitute, honestly, it is a pretty considerable downgrade. A little bit similar to like Boothill and the downgrade, right? So because of all those things, I would say it doesn't really need it because you can still clear, but the quality of life upgrade, the amount of additional things you're going to be getting from this is going to be worth it in my opinion. Especially if you're somebody that decides to play Rappa, I think E0 S1 is going to be far more worth it than E1 S1. So that's pretty much going to be it. Alright, Sunday signature. Just get it. Alright, boom. Very straightforward. Very easy. This is pretty much the game. This signature Lycone, it basically changes Sunday from a skill point negative to a skill point positive support. I've never seen anything quite like this. If you played Sunday without the signature Lycone, you are basically playing a different unit, right? This Lycone gives you so much skill point. He generates more skill points than Sparkle. Like, what the fuck are you even... Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? You literally generate more skill points than the support that was supposed to generate skill points. All from the single Lycone. If you didn't have this single Lycone, you are literally playing Sunday on a skill point negative efficiency, right? Throughout the quarter. Or you might not feel this that much with units like, for example, My Day and Castorice, because they don't really consume that many skill points. But for any other DPS that wants to run Sunday, and there are a lot of units that still run Sunday to this day, because people were talking about, like, you know, how Castorice doesn't synergize with Sunday, you know, therefore he's bad. No, right? He's still absolute best in slot for pretty much almost every single hyper grade you can think of. Jing, Blade, Aglaea, My Day, not Tribbie, Herta, all of the version 1 hyper carry DPS, Seele, to a certain extent you could even run it with like your version 2 DPS, like your Yunli, your Acheron, or Feixiao. All of them could still technically be ran with Sunday, because if something can be ran with Bronya, you can run it with Sunday, and Sunday just pretty much straight up the much better version of Bronya, right? You could make the argument that Sunday might see a bit of a competition when it comes to Mimi, right? That is like super thinking ahead in advance, because we currently have a 4-star Mimi, right? The 4-star Mimi, and we did get a 5-star HMC upgrade as Fugue. So there might be a potential future where the 5-star version of RMC comes out and it's an even better hyper carry support. Then that could be a little bit dangerous for Sunday, right? But I don't really want to play the game that much in the future because it's a super a lot of unknowns. But just on the as of right now, if you want to play Sunday and you are a player that has put for Sunday for either your version 1 DPS, version 2 DPS, any of the version 3 DPS except for maybe Castorice, this light cone is going to be extremely beneficial for you, right? You can run an alternative. For example, Bronya's S1 is not that bad, but cost for cost, vertical investment, this is pretty much the way to go, right? So that's gonna be that for Sunday's signature Lycon. Alright, fuck you's signature Lycon. Honestly, without resolution, I'll probably put it under good pool. But because of the existence of resolution, unfortunately, it's just gonna be niche, right? The deal with this is very simple, actually, right? Like I mentioned with your super break DPSs, right? You want to stack on defense ignore. And ironically or unironically, because resolution gave you a defense ignore, you theoretically could stack on more damage on resolution than her own signature light cone the closer you are to 100% defense ignore. So because of that, this light cone's value is literally getting challenged by a 4-star resolution. If this light cone were to have some kind of energy regeneration, I think that will put it in a pretty good pool category, right? Unfortunately, because this is only for your break damage, you only want to pull this light cone if you want to play this with your other break DPSs. You will never run this with your like Fugue Acheron, then Fugue just doesn't give a shit about this, right? And then if you want to place your break DPS, stacking on resolution's defense down also gives you a significant portion of damage amplification, because a lot of defense downs are going to be involved in your super DPS. So for these reasons, I would say she's pretty niche, right? Actually, you know what? Fuck it, very niche, around the same category as Lingsha, right? Okay, yes, this is super good, right? Herta's signature light cone is super good. I feel like the main reason why this light cone is not gonna be at a very good pool for me, it's sort of like a similar combination with Firefly and Acheron combined into one. So hear me out, right? The main reason for this signature Lycon being that good is because of that one skill point. Right, there's one skill point, it allows you to basically do a skill, ultimate, enhance skill back to back on only one skill point. If you did not have this, you have to have 2 skill points, otherwise you cannot do that combo. And a lot of times in a scenario where you want to be very tight with your action values, you want to squeeze in the 134 speed, you can't really afford to just store the enhanced skill to the next turn. Because the enemy either would have caused some kind of delay, or you have lost the action value to guarantee the 134 speed, right? So most of the time, if you can, you should be using skill out skill almost every single time, right? And this one skill point allows you to have a much higher degree of comfort for dedicating that one skill point to anything else, right? Because the Herta teams, generally speaking, they use quite a bit of skill point, right? Anaxa sort of elevated that issue because Anaxa is pretty skill point positive. You could just not use his skill whatsoever. Basic always guarantee a skill against a target with more than 5 weaknesses. But there are also some scenarios where you just want to spam Anaxa skills just to deal as much toughness bar damage and as much damage from Anaxa himself as possible. Or there might be some situations where you want to spam Tribbie skill just to refresh the energy a little bit faster to cast the ultimate, to cast the dance. And then lastly, if you want to use like Lingsha as a sustain, then Lingsha is like a fucking skill point monster, right? So a lot of these different teammates, they could use the additional skill point that is generated from this S1 a lot. But the main reason why I would say this is not gonna be at a very good pool is if you were to pull for an S1, it means that you're taking away a potential step towards E1 Herta. And unlocking E1, the E1 Herta herself, it is also very strong. E1 Herta, while not as crazy as E2, that E1 makes your interpretation multiplier goes up, and it combines a stack of interpretation from the adjacent targets. And I don't think I need to say too much about E2 Herta, because E2 Herta is just completely fucking bastard. So if you're somebody that thinks about vertical investment, right? If you are able to see the long term, getting a E2 Herta before the S1 is gonna be a lot stronger than securing an E0 S1 Herta early, because what I've been doing for, at least for my free-to-play account, and my thought process is I'm still running an E0 S0 Herta. As long as I am mindful of my skill point usage, I can still be okay. Alright, I can still be okay. I can just try to work around it. Maybe I need to use a basic a little bit. Maybe I clear it like one cycle slower. Not the end of the road, but once I get the Anaxa, both of them being an E0 S0, it means that I've secured a pretty solid foundation to see where things go from there. And the reason why I don't want to commit into an E0 S1 Herta yet is because whenever you pull in this DPS signature light cones, right, you have seen the outcomes from your version 1s. Your version 1 DPSs, right? I honestly don't really know how is it going to be like going from version 3 into version 4. Herta, at least she's an Emanator, right? She's an Emanator, and if we know any of our Emanators, Acheron age pretty well. And these DPSs, they scale with their teammates. So I have more potential prospects for units like Herta and Acheron. But it doesn't take away the potential where if I wanted to commit into this team, do I really need to commit before a version 4 brand new archetype comes out? But I'm thinking from like a super conservative and long-term perspective as a free-to-play player myself on my free-to-play account, right? If you don't want to care about it that much, I think this S1 is going to be worth it. Because at the end of the day, like I mentioned, S1 is cheaper than E1, right? And if you're okay with just, I don't want to give a damn about E2 Herta ever, I'm confident, I'm content, E0 S1 Herta with, let's just say I pull for an additional E0 S0 and Anaxa, this team is going to be fine, right? This is going to be fine, but I just don't know how is it going to be like going forward in version 4. And the reason why I would say this is going to be lower than Acheron is because I know Acheron's performance from launch to now, it has been 1 year, and after 1 year, she's still sort of holding up her weight. And there are potential reasons, theoretically speaking, that Acheron could get even better benefits. So after her lifespan of like 1 year, I can still see her being in that spot. That's why I would say this is a very, very good, right? For Herta, the main concern I have for Herta is just, if it's gonna be an all-out single target environment, she might face issues. Because you are guaranteed 9 energy minimum against 3 targets, even against 1 target, but that still reduces the charge for her own ultimate as well as for her Tribbie, right? For Tribbie. So I don't know how it's gonna be like 1 year later, and that's why I try to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to this. But at the end of the day, if you want to hear me all my yap and my thought process, if you believe, if you have confidence in E0 Herta, right? S1 is a very, very cheap direct upgrade. Give you the skill point, give you everything, and you don't really need me to think about it. So if you want to do it, you can wait over here. But I would say, me personally, I'll just jump over here, right? Okay, with that, we have a couple of res over here. Aglaea Lightcone, I would say this is okay, but it is honestly very, very niche. The main reason for this Aglaea Lightcone being very, very niche is because you usually want to use this to hit that specific speed tuning of 2x speed Aglaea plus Sunday. If you cannot hit that 2x speed Aglaea plus Sunday, this Lightcone does nothing for you. Because the main reason for this Lightcone is the Blockade, which gives you the additional 12 speed, I believe. Alright, the additional 12 speed. This is basically only possible if you were to run this Ninja Lightcone, because it's equivalent to more than 6 speed substats. And then you are basically sacrificing a lot of crit substats just for this speed in order to synergize with the 2x speed Aglaea plus Sunday. But the thing is, you don't really need 2x speed Aglaea plus Sunday, because you can still run like a decently fast Sunday, like those 160 speed Sunday, pair up with a very, very slow, as slow of an Aglaea as possible, and that can still clear content a lot. I would say that this is really specifically for people that want to just take the highest possible amount of damage possible, running that specific setup with Sunday. Then I think this Lightcone is very, very good, right? Okay, actually, you know what? Maybe very niche is a bit too sorry. I'll put it in niche. I personally like Aglaea's playstyle a lot. I like the way that she synergizes with Sunday and Barbarian. I like the way that we got 2x speed. I would never want to play my Aglaea without 2x speed. That's me personally, right? If you're okay with that, I think it's fine, right? But me personally, I really, really like the 2x speed formula, so this is gonna be that. Tribbie Lightcone, it's not as bad as y'all think, because even though Tribbie is an excellent user for DDD, right? It's not a skip because of DDD, which technically it is. I would say this is a very good definition of very, very niche. Because if you cannot utilize DDD, right? If you cannot utilize DDD, the action value generated, you are losing out 25 to 30% of her final damage output. I've done the math for my early access server for Tribbie as well. Her signature light cone literally makes her deal 25 to 30% more damage. And if you are already at 134 speed, right? If you're already speed to Anaxa or Herta, everybody to 134, 135 speed, then whether or not you have DDD changes nothing, especially if you're trying to go for that 0 cycle or even 1 cycle clear, right? So for those reasons, I would say it is still super, super niche, but it is something that can still see play, right? If you have your speed tuning down, you just want to deal more damage with Tribbie, this light cone is honestly quite okay because it is a pretty substantial damage output increase for Tribbie herself, right? If you don't need it, then just slam DDD, it's gonna be done. Alright, My Day signature, I mean, like, who plays My Day? Okay, I mean, I love My Day, right? But like, I think this is also very, very niche. Probably because I just think not enough people actually really paid that much attention to My Day himself, which is a little bit unfortunate because everybody just skip My Day, get Castorice, skip My Day, get Castorice, all that kind of stuff. But I would say that My Day honestly is a super, super strong unit. And the only reason why I'm not going to be placing him higher is because my free-to-play account, Bob, he is running a E0 S0 My Day light cone with a fucking Firefly Sam light cone. I'm running Flames afar. And he's still putting in the work, right? If you do have access to the event light cone Ninja record, I honestly think this is also a very, very decent alternative. But generally speaking, the unit himself is very strong. But the usage cage for the light cone itself is not gonna be that crazy. He's sort of like, this is the equivalent of an Acheron signature, by the way. My Day signature, it basically generates him. Imagine he's Acheron, you get more stacks. You get more charge. So you get more God Slayer at a faster basis. That is how impactful this light cone is, especially for the My Day hyper carry players, right? This light cone, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm just too biased. Fine, niche. I'm sorry. I love man. I was a little bit too biased. Yeah, this light cone is honestly really, really good because it does give you the charge and you can cycle basically that God Slayer a lot faster. But if you are My Day main, I think this E0 S1 is going to be substantial. But you need to take a look at his E1. My Day mates, before committing to the S1, you need to take a look at this E1. Because this E1 is absolutely fucking diabolical. It completely fixes every single potential problem that My Day may have, which is he can't kill the other units if it's going to be extending beyond an destruction-based targeting. It turns him into an erudition DPS, essentially, on top of increasing a damage multiplier, which is basically raw damage multiplier, by 30%. This is how you see My Day having damage per screenshot. You see like 400k, 500k, it goes like 1.2 million against 5 targets. That's how you see it. This E1, I would say, it is so fucking diabolical. If they ever decide to make it such a, we are going to be focusing on AoE content, this is insane. It's an insane item one. So that is pretty much it. Okay, Castorice light cone. I think we can all come to agree, right? Castorice, unfortunately, the closest substitute to Castorice signature light cone is gonna be very, very, very considerable damage downgrade. You get way too much value from this. I don't think I need to explain too much. Just basically just run this, right? Ignore defense, action value advance, max HP, everything that you could ask for in the DPS, slam this in, you're done, right? Everything else is just, we have no other remembrance light cones. You're not gonna fucking run memory curtain never fails, right? I have literally shown you guys, if you didn't have this signature light cone, a fucking Bailu signature could offer a similar number of damage, which is basically you're losing 30% final damage anyways. You could literally just run an off-class Bailu light cone just for the raw sets, because no other light cone in Remembrance gave this much utility, right? So if you are going to be putting for Castorice, just get on E0 S1 and then we can move on from this, right? So I don't know anything about. And this brings us to the final light cone, which is going to be a Anaxa signature. I really talked about this a little bit just now, because of the fact that we do have access to a very, very nice alternative. That's going to be the Great Cosmic Enterprise. This is going to be a X excellent alternative to My Day signature. You're not gonna really feel too big of a difference. The main difference is basically you need to change your rope from an attack rope to an ER rope to guarantee a 2-turn ultimate. If you don't want to do that, sticking with a 43% attack rope, then you can still maintain 2-turn ultimate if you were to run this signature, because it perfectly fills in the gap of that 20 energy outside from that 140 energy cost, right? So because My Day cast your skill twice, 60 energy. With the signature light cone, you get 70 energy instead of 60, so then you get a perfect 2-turn ultimate even without Yarrow. But generally speaking, if you're putting this from the perspective of like, you know, vertical investment for a D Herta, dealing more damage, more charge for D Herta, then this signature icon doesn't really change too much, because the majority of the damage should still be coming from D Herta herself. So because of that, I would say this is still in the pretty niche category. And with that, I am gonna wrap up this video over here. That is gonna be my light cone tier list of who to pull in 2025 after, not really 25, but like who to pull, which light cones to pull after Honkai Starbucks 2nd anniversary. And I do believe that next Friday, we are gonna be getting the live stream for Higher Scene as well as Cypher next Friday, I believe. And then the week after, we're gonna be able to get access to the Higher Scene early access. So when those two come out, I'll probably check them out, this update a little bit more. But I'm not gonna make a dedicated video because I've been yapping for 1 hour and 17 minutes. Absolutely fucking insane. No script, just all me. Pat myself on the back. Big bones for a streamer. Very, very good. So I'm gonna first screenshot this and post this onto Twitter. There we go, 100 and yep, W. So we're gonna just who to pull after HSR 2nd anniversary. All right, which light cone to pull after HSR 2nd anniversary? W, is that how you spell anniversary? It is, right? Okay, W. All right. So yeah, with that, we've come to the end of today's content. Word of the day is going to be, I'm always right, I am never wrong. My opinions are the only opinion that matters, because my tier is the best tier in the entire world, right? So that's gonna be the word of the day. Join Twitch, join Discord, join Twitter, all the best. Guys, take care.